What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Pod Scum. I'm your host, Reckless Rex Ruger, a.k.a. Diamond David Lee Roth Jr. That, of course, if you couldn't tell by those enormous teeth, is the Freddie Mercury puppet. Our guest is here. We like punctuality, so I'll babble on later, and we'll get down to the brass tacks now. Rogers.
Hey, how's it going?
It's an honor, man. It's an honor. I'm glad we got a chance to do this, man.
All right, hang on. I got to figure this out. So you can double tap the pin. Okay, I don't want to pin anybody.
No, you look perfect right there, man. You look perfect. I can see you and hear you perfectly, man. Thanks for doing this, man. And I imagine when you get to do an interview with Diamond David Lee Roth Jr., it's probably a pretty big deal for you too.
Listen, I'm a David Lee Roth fan. Okay?
Yeah, me too, man. I mean, how can you not be?
I hung out with him before in New York, with a friend. We used to watch the Mike Tyson. I think we watched like the Tyson Holyfield fight together.
Yeah. Oh, he'd be a great guy to watch a fight with. Is it running commentary all the time? Because Dave's a lightning rod, it seems like.
No, he was awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, he's
just exciting.
I was a fan as a teenager, and so, this is when I was probably, this was in like 1997, 98, around that time.
Yeah.
And I had a friend who knew him, right? And this is when he was working as an EMT in New York City.
Oh yeah, yep.
And he would show up and just come over by himself with 2 fucking grocery bags full of like chips and beer and stuff. He would throw out a spread.
Yeah.
And he would just be Diamond Dave, and he was amazing. He would tell stories, and he was cool. And I don't know. That's the only. I probably did that with him like 3 times.
I love to hear that.
And it was and that's my only knowledge of him, really. But other than that was my first concert, was the 1984 tour.
Right. So, which is a pretty damn good place to start. And when I start these things, I'm interested in kind of going back to the beginning and picking your brain about, was there a specific album or an artist or a song that really triggered a passion for music in you?
Well, I mean, early.
Yeah.
I just remember listening to the radio, and I remember the first song I can remember that I loved was Band on the Run.
Yeah.
And then but that it started out well, but then I think I really, like in the I don't know, maybe I was like the 2nd grade or something, I loved Debbie Boone's You Light Up My Life.
Yeah. That's a heartwarming song though.
But what I used to do is, I grew up in Mississippi, and so every Sunday we would go to church, and then right after church, like as soon as the thing ended, I would sprint out of the church and run out to the car, and I knew how to turn the key backwards, to get the radio on.
Yeah.
And I would listen, because Casey Kasem would count down last week's top 3.
Yeah.
Before he would go to the top 40. That's when his show came on in my
a great time.
And so I knew every hit record in the 70s like this. And so I love that stuff. I love a lot of things about that era, but
is there 1 or 2 people that you can think of who you feel like specifically as guitar players have influenced your style of playing?
Well, I mean, like I was saying, that was just listening to the radio, but then I when I was about 13 years old, I saw Van Halen. That was the first concert I saw. We drove up to Memphis. I talked a friend's dad into, we took my mother's station wagon, and he drove me and my friend from this, in the same grade. His dad drove us up there, and we saw them in Memphis. And it was like right at the end of 1983, right when they started the tour.
Yeah.
And I'd never seen anything like it. I was into comic books and stuff as a kid. So eventually I started to figure out I was never going to get superpowers,
Right.
But then, you go and see that, and it's like, well, that's pretty close. Yeah, it's close enough. So,
right.
It was a great show. And Dave did the whole sword dance. We were at the very top row. It's the first time I ever smelled marijuana. I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
But, but so we were up in the top row, and you know, I could barely see them, but you know, it was just incredible. Eddie was amazing. And so then I started to want a guitar. You know, it took me about a year to get one. I was
Yeah.
scheming for a year after that, but
Yeah.
I finally got one. And you know, I grew up hearing a lot of country music. You know, that's what's around. And I heard country music and whatever is on the top 40.
Yeah. Well, I
And
hear
that's all
lots
I
of
need.
great stuff. I hear lots of great stuff in your current project. But before we get to that, I'm interested because you are working on music. There's obviously equipment behind you. For you, because I talked to so many musicians on here, what's the creative process like for you? Are you somebody that can kind of just lock yourself away and force yourself to make music, or do ideas have to come to you throughout the day? What's the process like?
Well, you know, I mean, I do play a lot. I sit around and play and I sing. You know, I never sang really before up until about 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And so I just started doing it. You know, during the pandemic, I sat out on my porch, and I also never learned other people's songs. So, and this is how I taught myself to sing. I just got this thing with, you know, cowboy chords and the lyrics, and I just learned. I know 500 songs now. I have all the
Yeah.
Beatles songs, every song I can think of on
You've
the
got a
radio.
catalog.
Yeah, yeah. You know, it's like one of the guitar magazines has an app that just has cowboy chords. You know,
Yeah.
I don't look at tablature or any of that stuff. I play it how I know it. You know,
Right. Right.
and I play it I play it because of the vocal melody. You know, and so I sat around and did that for a while. I didn't really know, you know, and it turns out I could do it well enough to make a record. So I started doing that. But that my process is, you know, I've always written songs, and you know, even from the beginning of Blind Melon, you know, I have a few of my songs on the first record, on all the records, really.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So we were all writers, you know, and which was a train wreck, and you know, made it difficult, but you know, some things were interesting, you know, but you know, I didn't do it for a long time. You know, after Shannon died, just kind of like, you know, pretty much crushed something in
Oh,
me.
I can imagine. Yeah, I
And
can imagine.
and so I didn't do it for a while. I ended up being, you know, I went to law school. You know, I'm a lawyer now.
I know. I know.
It's crazy.
Believe me, I've done my homework, man. I've got notes and bullet points here to talk to you about, and that is fascinating, man. Like, I mean, but is music the full-time job? Like, do you physically? I mean, do you actually practice law?
Well, yeah, I'm in-house for a totally remote company.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
So it's a global company, and so I do that here, and then when I'm done with that, I come into this room.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I mean, all your work is contained in one place. That's beautiful.
I'm still in quarantine, man.
Yes. Some of us don't want to come out. I know it was kind of nice for a while.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, when the pandemic happened, I mean, obviously, you know, setting aside all the tragedy, just my personal habits, I'm like, I'm okay.
Oh,
You know, I
yeah,
don't really need
yeah.
to go. I've been all over the fucking place. I'm tired of that shit.
Right.
You know, it's
right.
I didn't get to make the records that I wanted to make, you know, in my life, and so now I've kind of built this studio, and I've set about to doing that.
Yeah. Well,
Basically.
I'm glad you brought up Blind Melon, and in the last couple of days, I did rewatch the All I Can Say documentary, which is extraordinary, man. How he had such foresight, you know, to already be kind of capturing stuff and already kind of knowing, hey, I'm on this great trajectory, and why don't, for posterity's sake, I document all of it and record all of it? Because thankfully, we do have this treasure, this gem of a documentary, All I Can Say, which having Shannon Hoon, the late great Shannon Hoon, taken from us, was absolutely gut wrenching. What a truly amazingly talented guy.
He was. I mean, honestly, he was. You know, first of all, he broke my heart. You know what I mean?
I can
really.
imagine. Yeah.
And but he was a super talent. You know, he was, and I don't know, just personality. You know, whatever, just absolute, all of it. I mean, and had he been able to make more records, I mean, I think people would consider him, you know, on a, you know, prominent in the conversation, at least in terms of
yeah,
our
fuck without a
generation.
doubt. Yeah, he'd be up in the pantheon of greatest frontmen of all time for sure.
I mean, he was
Absolutely.
absolutely I mean, when I met him, I was like, that dude's, is absolutely, you know, he's what you would, if AI were to create a rock star now, it might be him. You know,
absolutely.
Like,
yes, and with such an angelic voice as well. And I even think that I think they said in the 20th century, you know, that the song that was the most anthemic that people voted as the feel good song was "Don't Stop Believing." But I believe though, man, that a song like "Change" is really one of those songs, man, that speaks to everybody.
You know, I agree
song.
with you. I agree with you on that. And because, but I mean, I don't know like hits or whatever. I don't give a fuck. You know, but my point is that song packs an emotional punch, and I knew it. It was the first song I ever heard him play. He sat down and played that song.
Yeah.
And I was like, that is a huge song. And I don't know, you know, whatever, you know, how marketing happens or whatever, but that song always thought could have been a bigger hit. And there's something, you know, maybe the song was so good it's hard to fuck it up, but honestly when I hear the recording I'm like, we could have done that better.
Yeah, right.
Well,
right.
we were just starting out, you know, like, I mean, honestly I'd only been playing the guitar maybe 4 years or something when we recorded that. So
but I'm wondering what was the impetus. I mean, obviously, you know, Shannon passes away, and you guys don't make a new Blind Melon record until with Travis, 2008, right? What was the impetus for revisiting Blind Melon, or had you guys always said we're going to come back to this at some point?
Well, no. What happened is after Shannon died, we made this, you know, posthumous record about a year later, which was an incredible experience, and then. And we tried to do this. We thought, okay, we got to move on. You know, like we're a band. We were all writers. You know, we were really like, I mean, we were close. You know, as humans, and you know, we had this unifying experience. You know, we'll all be forever connected by this thing. You know,
right?
And so we tried to do that, but it just, you know, first of all, hindsight being 2020, none of us were ready to do that, really. We just didn't know what else to do. And so we played around with a couple of people, and it just we never made it feel right. And then people started to, you know, do other stuff. So it fell apart. And I always thought, well, you know, we kind of put it to bed. There's no way to do anything. And then maybe I think in 2006, somebody from Atlantic Records knew Travis. Was just in town or something, and they brought him out to the studio where Brad and Christopher were. They had a studio that they were making records in the Valley in Hollywood, or in the Valley just north of Hollywood. And so he came in and they started talking, and he played him some songs. Then he played him a bunch of Blind Melon songs because he loved Blind Melon as a kid, you know, as a teenager. And Brad called me like a couple of days after that. And he was like, you know, this dude could sing Blind Melon songs in his sleep. I mean, he's like, and so I flew out there, and we, you know, because for me, the thing that really mattered was, could we write songs with him?
Right.
Because I know that we could do a tribute act, although it would be hard to find somebody to sing Shannon's, you know, because he's up there in the register.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But anyway, so we got out there, and I listened to his songs, and it was like, okay, this dude can play. Like, he's for real. Like, he's got a whole other thing that I don't know, like, maybe is not known if you just heard him in Blind Melon, but he's a really good guitar player, like Texas flat picking, like really good. And he comes from that lineage in Texas, and he's got that a country thing, you know. And I heard that, and I was like, yeah, no, I can do something with that. And so, you know, we and then, you know, then the question was, well, can he sing like all of the Blind Melon songs? So we got in a room, and we played probably like 12 songs in a row. You know, we learned them again and flew out there, and all got together in LA and did it. And it was like within 30 seconds, you're like, oh, wow. I mean, he totally nails it. Like, he can, you know, it's a different thing. He's a different singer than Shannon. but he can hit all of the songs, you know,
right.
and he can deliver them in a way that feels impactful and emotional and all that. So like, I don't want to do it if it's just like, you know, I've seen this done before, I guess. And I think he's a real artist. So I wouldn't have done it if I didn't think that. Like, there's a lot of people who can really sing, you know?
Yeah. Well, plus
like,
you guys set the bar.
There's a
Plus
lot
you
of
guys set the
people
bar
who
pretty
get on.
high. You guys set the bar pretty high. Right out of the gate, you guys set the bar high though, because those first two albums are literally in any time period, man, but especially back then, man. But those hold up, man. Those first two albums, the self-titled and Soup, are almost perfect albums, man. They really are great.
Well, you know, I mean, I do think those are, you know, we thought Soup was better than everybody else did. You know?
Yeah. But I think critics have come around though, man. It seems like it's a well received record, at least from the different sites that I've looked at. But I mean, you know, the self-titled one,
you know,
yeah. Well, the self-titled one for me is one song that always makes me happy, man. Always lifts my spirits. Is Tones of Home.
Yeah,
one of my all-time favorites. I love that song.
You know, when we I heard that record recently, like I listened to a bunch of it because, you know, I needed to like reference it, and it's really amazing to me to hear it because it's really an artifact from another time if you think about it. Because we performed that album live. That's us in a room playing it live. There's not a lot. There's very little overdubbing. There's very little fucking anything. That's how the band sounded in that room.
Yeah, which is incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, and so like we had gotten, you know, we'd gotten it going, but we, you know, when we cut the first half of that record, having not played very many live shows at all, like I would say less than a dozen. And so then we went out on tour and we played for like in the middle of recording. We did half of it, and then we went out on the road and played probably, I don't know, maybe 40 or 50 shows. And we came back and cut the second half of the record. And Glenn swears he knows every song that we cut on the second half, but Tones of Home is one of them, I think.
Yeah.
And a lot of it has, you know, his performance, the drum performance on that track is insane.
Yeah, it's a great, it's such an upbeat, and there's so many elements of funk in there. It's a really groovy song. It really is.
Listen, Glenn was a different drummer than, I don't know anybody. He's the person who made the band interesting to me, like in terms of like the music. Like when you, there's very few like him, but he was more of a throwback to like, I don't know, you could go back to like Derek and the Dominoes or somebody like that, like where Jim Gordon, like that drummer, or like even like Motown stuff, which is what he was into. And so he brought that in, and, you know, we were kind of trying to rock it up, but like he was making it, you know, he was advanced level drummer.
He's incredible.
But completely self-taught. And
yeah, that's incredible too.
And you know, unorthodox in his approach, but I learned how to play guitar against his drumming, like really in a lot of ways. And so like it really was, you know, he was important to me in that way.
I don't think people realize though, man, and you know, for younger people certainly aren't going to realize. I'm 51 years old, so I certainly remember. But you know, when that first album came out, and Shannon's, you know, in a Guns N' Roses video, and that fucking B Girl is everywhere, man. You guys were really at the height of your powers, man. I mean, Blind Melon was everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, for a little while there, it was.
That B Girl even became famous because of you guys.
Yeah, I think you know, I do think that, you know, probably nobody wanted to hear another note from us at some point during that. And so that, you know, what happened to us, or, you know, what we did was, you know, we went out, we put that record out in 92. I think it was September of 92. And then we went out on tour, and it was a year of touring in a van, like just boom, boom, boom. You know, No Rain was, I think, the third or fourth single off the record.
Wow.
yeah, like the record company made videos, they did all this shit and nothing hit, you know. It's like, I mean, we were you know, the shows were getting bigger, you know, more people were coming out and we were getting better. We were building it sort of slowly, and we probably sold, I don't know, a couple 100,000 records like that in a year. And then that happened, right? That video happened.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget it. We were on tour. It was, and I don't know, maybe you'll remember this. In 1993, there was a big flood in the Midwest.
There was. Yep.
Yeah. And so St. Louis, all these, you know, all the Midwest, like we were, you know, we'd be driving down the interstate and there's water up, you know, and you see rooftops.
Yeah.
The water. It was
You
like
guys were
that.
on the thick of it.
Yeah, but the interstate's good, and we're just going to the next show, you know.
Yeah.
So that was happening, and something, I don't know, maybe that had, I don't know, just the title and all that. I just it did something, you know. It caught something in the zeitgeist, and that video, you know, Sam Baer's video was it was, you know, we told him, we had the album cover, right? And we just, that was the only direction we gave him was, you know, this is a couple of weeks before we're doing this thing. And we said, just use that.
Yeah.
Whatever
you
you,
guys benefited from it,
let's
though.
put that in there. Let's have this as the basis for something. And so, you know, they did a day of shooting with all the stuff with the girl and running around LA and stuff. And then we were on tour, and we came down from San Francisco going down to LA and going through the Simi Valley. Woke up on the bus in that field. Like,
wow.
You know, we'd been on tour, woke up walked off the bus, shot our thing in the field, and got back on the bus and went and played a show that night.
You couldn't watch MTV for an hour back in the day and not see that video. It was all it was on all the time, man. And I mean, but deservedly so, because you know, the visual was great and the song is great though. And that's back when MTV, you know, like, but what I find funny is you guys did have kind of an upbeat, kind of throwback 70s hippie-ish kind of sound or whatever. And here you are existing and thriving when all this, you know, doom and gloom grunge is kind of going on around you.
I mean, I don't know, man. Look, we did some of that. We did some of that kind of, I mean, we had a sound. We weren't consciously doing anything.
Right.
That's just the way it came out.
Right.
You know, 3 of us grew up in rural Mississippi. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
I can't make music that doesn't have something of that in there. That's
Right.
just who I am. So that happens, and this thing happened around us, or at the same time that we were doing it, and we happened to be sort of, you know, looped into it in some way.
Yeah.
But and we knew all those people, and we had those mutual respect and all that. But I mean, we didn't know that was happening. I'll say this. I remember, you know, Shannon and I were living in a house in Hollywood. We had we literally had a Hollywood bungalow.
Yeah.
It was behind another house, you know, it was a little guest house.
Yeah.
And we were renting that. And I'll never forget, this was when he was going, because we were 3 blocks away from A&M Studios, where he was going and tracking the Guns N' Roses vocals.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is when we first got together. And I remember one day, you know, like we didn't have anything. We had nothing, you know, we had no like responsibilities and nothing to show for anything.
Right.
For anything. But he had gotten an advance copy of Nirvana's Nevermind. And so he hadn't even listened to it yet. He got it from Axl, like they were a Geffen or something. Like he ended up getting a copy of this thing. And before it came out, and me and him sat on his bed. You know, he's sitting Indian sat on the bed and listened to that in a boombox. And the whole thing, top to bottom, smoking weed. And it was like, fuck, that's good. You know, and we didn't even know, like, I didn't know anything about punk rock. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Where I grew up, that was not a thing. You know, there was no musicians really. I mean,
But we were just coming out of the 80s where it was a lot of style over substance, and the music had kind of gotten
yeah,
derivative
but
and frivolous
punk rock
then.
still happened, right?
Right. Punk rock
Like
stuff. So
cool
when Nirvana
stuff
hit,
still.
you kind of knew, okay, man, this is a game changer.
Well, cool stuff had been happened that I just never knew about. You know,
Right.
I did like Guns N' Roses. You know, I like when I was in high school and that record came out.
Oh yeah.
And I knew, like, I liked things like I liked REM, I liked the Rolling
I
Stones.
love REM.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, because they would come around. You know, they were in the South,
Yeah.
and so but I heard that Guns N' Roses record, and I was like, man, and it was all like, because things I didn't like, all the hard rock bands, really, very many of them at the time, but I did like, the first Motley Crue record a lot.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But and that's a whole other thing. But when that record came out, that Guns N' Roses record, and I saw them open for Motley Crue at in Jackson, Mississippi in like '87. And I was a junior in high school, and I listened to that record nonstop for a year. It was like top to bottom. That their
It's a
first
great
record
album.
was.
Yeah.
It's one of the best. I mean, it still sounds great on the radio.
Considering it's a debut album too. I mean, that's crazy.
That record and the Rolling Stones. Those two things are how I learned how to do guitars for Blind Melon.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's a two guitar band, but they're not playing the same fucking thing. There's a point and counterpoint, and there's counter harmonies and counter rhythms but not like lame, technical stuff, but like it feels right.
Yeah.
And so I thought that about that record, and still do.
I really like what you're doing though now, and I want to make sure that we get the spotlight on that. So, Towne and Stevens. So, talk to me a little bit about this. So, you're still working with another member of Blind Melon,
right? Well, I mean, I should also say that Blind Melon's going to be very busy next year.
Okay, that's good news.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that we're probably going to do I don't know, at least 50 shows, based on what I've seen.
Great.
So, yeah, I'm just doing, in the interim, I've done this. Like, I started this thing with Nate, and it's just the two of us writing songs, and I started singing, and we sort of do this in the same, all of the songs that we've done on, this record that I'm finishing, and the first one that we did happen in a similar way, which is we work it out and then we put it on the piano. We lay it down with a grand piano.
Okay.
And then and Nate is an absolutely brilliant piano player. So once we have that, then I just build the track over it, and it sounds, you don't know this because it sounds like a live band or like a real band, but it's I've made this record in, I think, 5 different places. First, I flew to Sheboygan, Michigan, where we have this theater that Nate has the keys to, that has a beautiful Steinway on the stage. And so I brought recording gear there, set up there. We worked out the songs. I'm singing along, sitting next to him. It's like fucking Meatloaf. You know what I mean? It's like Meatloaf and his guy.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool.
But I love Meatloaf, by the way.
Love it. An icon.
Yeah, but I mean, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. It's just. Oh man.
Yeah.
That's a song.
He often doesn't get credited, man. I don't think he's mentioned enough as what a legend he is, and a phenomenal voice.
When you see it, like I looked it up on YouTube because I sit with a guitar and I'll play that song, but like I was looking at him singing it. There's a video of him with what's his name? What's the guy who wrote with him, his co-writer? I forget. But he's at the piano. And Meatloaf is singing, and it's dramatic and all that stuff, but it's the young Meatloaf.
Yeah.
My God, like he's all, he's got the sweat, he's got a flop sweat going, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, everything. It's so good.
But he can really sing, though, man. A tremendous voice.
He can
powerful
sing.
Voice. Yeah. I mean, he's a technically gifted singer.
Yes, for real.
Yeah.
But so I respect that anyway, and anyway.
Well, so Towne Stevens is a self-titled album, though, man, that I think is absolutely great, man. And like some of the songs that really stand out to me, one of the ones that gripped me right away was "Please Hold the Line." For some reason, man, that one just gave me like in a great way, because one of my favorite artists of all time is Tom Petty. That really gave me a great, wide open, free falling fucking type of vibe. You know what I mean? I love that song.
Yeah, it's a good one. And I'll tell you, it's like if I basically learned how to engineer a recording on that record, so it's the first time I ever mic'd a drum kit by myself. You know what I mean? So, and I did it in this room, most of that, and it just took forever to, like, because I'm doing it all by myself, and I'm overdubbing, I'm building the track up, and singing. So I learned a lot doing that record. Like the one I'm doing now sounds a lot better, but
well, you're learning stuff too. You're learning stuff.
Oh yeah, like now I'm
honing the craft.
Like, listen, I've got look at this shit. It's like freaking gadgets, like how awesome
you're like a mad scientist in there.
Everybody that comes to my house, I'm like, you got to come see this. Like I think that they're going to be just as interested as me, but they're.
I wrote some of the ones down that I really like. I really like Halfway Around the Eight. That had that jangly again, that Tom Petty, Eagles, Bob Dylan kind of feel, man. Another great song, and I love I Broke My Dream, and I love at the end of You Can't Leave It to Me. You guys it seemed like for the last couple minutes, just fucking like jam band style.
Honestly, that happened in this room.
That's awesome.
And that was one of the most killer. Now that I must note, the drummer on all these recordings is Rennie Lopez, and he makes his own records. He's a singer, and he's made a ton of records. But like he's an old friend, and so I know he's one of my favorite drummers, and so I've basically roped him into doing this, and he's busy, so but I corner him. And but he's ferocious. He's like he can let it fly. He's like Bonham. He's like whoever. If I could have recorded those drums right, you would hear it better. But like, and that jam that he does at the end, that's him and Nate. So Nate laid down the piano that's at the end, right? Like just laid down kind of a pulse, in here to a click track. And so they've got that, and Rennie's, and then they cut the bass and the drums, and then I'm putting a guitar on live to that.
Yeah.
So we know where it's going, but it's like, we're still kind of like, that's completely improvised.
But it warms my heart to hear somebody on a song just say, hey, you know what? We're going to take a good, I don't even know how long you guys jam for the end of that. With
that's like 8 minutes long,
Yeah.
And the song is over after.
It took me back to those days, like when like the Grateful Dead or like Government Mule or those kind of bands would just say, fuck it. We're going to take a couple minutes in this song and just fucking jam, play our instrument.
That's what I like. That's what you come to any show that I play in with Blind Melon or whatever. Like there's stuff like that on our records. I don't want to do anything else.
Right.
It's like people, I probably could make things more professional. I probably could hone songs down a little bit, but if I wanted to make them more digestible in certain ways, but like, I don't want to do that because I want to let it breathe out into what it's naturally. I don't edit. I make myself happy first, and then that's it.
Yeah. And I kind of like that because it does kind of call back to and I've said this in other episodes, those like 60s or 70s like live albums that you would hear where someone would hit a clunker and they would just say, fuck it, we're leaving it in there, man. Shit happens, man.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's rock and roll. I think we've gotten used to, now that we've got technology having everything perfect. But I like when it's a little loose and there's a human feel in there.
Well, here's the thing. Like, all my favorite records, probably my favorite records are the Stones, like Exile on Main Street, Sticky Fingers, Zero. None of those guitars are in tune. It's like nothing. There is no auto. There's nothing. I think
the only thing that was tuned up back then was Keith. That's about it.
He was a little sharp. He's a little bit sharp.
Yeah, a little sharp. But you know, I think that's why jazz goes over a lot of people's heads, though, because that's another thing. When you jam for like a good 3, 4, 5 minutes like that, and you don't put a lot of words in there, you know, it's not so wordy. Like people always think you got to have this, like, you know, this whole dissertation of lyrics. When sometimes it's just nice and refreshing to hear musicians just say, "We're going to let the musicians do the talk, the instruments do the talking." You know?
Yeah, I mean, you know, listen, not everybody likes to. That's not.
Right.
It's probably not, you know, it's probably not smart as a business strategy, but
but the lyrical prose, though, man, yes, you appreciate someone's poetry and someone's ability to you know, to write lyrics, man, but it doesn't have to be just an endless you know, a monologue of lyrics all the time, you know.
Right. Well, I know this, that the only things that last are the things that are real, you know. I mean, and so I have to do what I do to make it feel real to me.
Right.
Now, if that's successful, great, you know, then it has a shot at lasting success. But if, you know, maybe it doesn't take off because of for whatever reason. I mean, I'm old, you know.
Right.
It's like I'm not oblivious to the challenges commercially.
Right.
But I just don't give a fuck. I mean, really, I just don't. I mean, it's I'm doing this, and I know that it's good. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's better than normal, but I don't know how much, and I don't know if that really matters.
Well, around the time of COVID, obviously people couldn't get out and gig, so we were seeing an influx of recorded music on the platforms. People were releasing rapid fire singles. They were going the EP route. In this day and age, man, what's the right format? Is it an EP world, or can LPs still be relevant? It seems like attention spans have dwindled, and that's unfortunate. That people just want to hear a couple tracks and they want you to hit them and give it to them all at once, you know? Because, you know, it used to be an experience sitting down and dropping that needle and listening to an album the way it's supposed to be, you know, absorbed.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, I'm sure there's something to that, but it really doesn't affect my thinking about it. Like,
right, that's probably healthy.
Yeah, I mean, I have thought about that. Like, you know, oh, I could release one of these songs this week, another one next week, and do that sort of thing. But first of all, that would take planning.
Yeah, every month you could put out.
I'm going to get these things. I'm going to get them done. You know, I'll probably release 8 songs. Which is not, you know, a double album. It's not even all the way an album. It's somewhere in between.
Right.
But that doesn't really matter, you know. I was, you know, the problem of distribution has been resolved. You know, this was when we were starting out with Blind Melon, it was a big deal, right? Because, you know, there was a gatekeeper, right? You couldn't make a record. Now the technology has changed and made certain things accessible,
right?
And it's a little cheaper to do it in your house, but you still have to, you know, buy expensive shit to make real records,
right?
You know,
quality ones, yeah. Anyway,
right? I mean, you know, it does matter, and I don't want to say people don't make good recordings with shit gear or cheap gear or whatever, because they do, but you know, I'm not good enough to do that, so I've been, you know, buying gear, but I do think that, you know, that game has changed. It used to be we would go on tour. I remember being on tour. We're in Ohio or something somewhere, and we'd been out on the road for 6 months. Our record has been out. There's no records in the store in the town that we're going to play.
Right.
You know? Right. And so you're like, well, what are we doing? You know, we're like, it's like, if you happen to come by that night,
yeah,
and you had an inkling to buy the record because you saw us, you wouldn't be able to.
Now, was this a nervous experience for you now, man? Because you did say that the singing is kind of like new to you. Do you feel like you're still finding your way, or do you feel like you've developed a confidence now, you know, with your vocal approach?
I mean, I've gotten better at it, but you know, and you know, it's easy. It's not scary to put it out because I can always hide and hear, you know, and I actually have to see anybody who's listened to it.
Right.
But no, I mean, you know, look, I'm fucking fearless in this way.
Yeah.
No, I have something in me that's going to come out, and I'm going to do it. And if people are going to listen to it and they want to listen to it, then I'll come and play it for them. that's just there's no way I can't do that.
Is the Towne Stevens stuff, is that stuff you would like to go out and play live? Like, I know you said you got
we're gonna do
a busy schedule next year with Blind Melon, but like, would you like to get out and do some dates?
Yeah, we're gonna work this into that. We're going to but probably separately. I think the Blind Melon stuff there's gonna be a lot of stuff in the summer, and we'll probably do stuff in the fall. I'm going to put this record out as soon as I get it done. There's going to be a single coming out, like, I don't know, within the next week or so.
Okay, cool. I got a couple subjective things that I always ask all my guests. So the first one I'm going to start with is, because you've traveled the world, you've been in the amazing Blind Melon, you've gotten to do festivals and tour all over the place. Has there been somebody in the music industry that you've been fortunate enough to meet and rub elbows with that really bowled you over and stuck with you? Like, where you really say, wow, I can't believe I actually got to meet him?
Well, I mean, we toured with the Stones, right? And they were my I mean, they were my heroes, and so we would go and we'd get to the show early because we're on early.
Yeah.
But so would Keith and Ron, and they would because they brought an English snooker table on tour, like a proper, big. It's a 9-foot table. It's like a
they're taking it seriously.
With the smaller balls,
Yeah.
And they were obsessed with that. And Brad was a shark. So and so every day we were doing shows, we were in there for a few hours and gambling. And Brad won money off of them. But
they've got it there. I think they've done all okay.
It didn't matter, but
we take a few bucks off the Stones.
But they were awesome. They were so cool. I mean, such gentlemen, and like whatever like rock star shit they had been through is so out of our stratosphere. It's like there was no game in like treating us like shit.
All those guys are big legends, but who do you get a chance to meet specifically, and who's the one that makes more of the impact? Obviously, you've got Keith. Obviously, you've got Mick. Like, they are pretty much like the Mount Rushmore there. You know what I mean? Like, are they both awesome guys? Is one more intimidating than the other?
Well, no, they were. Well, I'll tell you, like, we didn't spend as much time with Mick, but he was very, very nice and polite and all that, and like he would. I would see him sometimes like sitting in the corner with a laptop, running the Empire or whatever,
Right.
and Keith is like, he's got a big gulp Jack and Coke at 3 p.m.
Yeah. Well, thank God, man, because I could see Mick being the one with a little bit of more of a head for business, but you need that in a band, though, correct?
Yeah, but I mean, it wasn't anything. They were super cool. Like, we did a lot of touring Guns N' Roses, and I mean, I got to know them, early on, particularly Axel, just through Shannon, before that record even came out that he sang on. Like, when Shannon first got there, we spent, I don't know, I hung out with him here and there because he and Shannon were spending a lot of time together, just running around Hollywood acting like assholes.
And now let me ask you this: you've probably been, from a fan standpoint, you've probably seen and been to lots of gigs. Is there an impactful show that you witnessed from the audience that really stands out to you that you attended?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say, like, I am into jazz stuff, and I've seen some of that, but I won't necessarily go into that. But I definitely thinking about like rock shows that I've seen that were good. Like, I remember going with Brad in 1989 to see Jane's Addiction at the Universal Amphitheater in LA. This is when we first moved out there. We didn't even have a band yet, but they were doing that their ritual
day of habitual.
Yeah. It was that tour, and I was like, wow, well, there's so much that's possible with this, and they sounded great. And then I mean, I saw a lot of shows. I remember at some point we were in Seattle, Blind Melon. I think we were making our first record maybe. And I remember the five of us going to see Tool at a club.
Yeah.
And it was just the five of us, the bartenders, and Tool. And we stood in front of them and watched them.
Wow.
And they were incredible.
Yeah.
You know, it was like, that's fucking great. That's a
Who
band.
would
You
have
know,
known
like,
that?
that sort of thing was happening at the time, you know, like we went on tour with Soundgarden. Our first shows on tour of Blind Melon were on the Bad Motorfinger tour with Soundgarden.
Great band.
And I didn't know anything about them. And nothing. Like I mean, I heard of them, but I never heard, even I knew if I heard a song. But I don't know, like the second night on the tour, I sat in the balcony and watched them, and I was like, "Holy shit, that's good!" It's like
that Motorfinger album was a beast too.
Yeah, they were, you know, they were really coming into their, you know, full thing at that point, and so, you know, that was a band that we knew, you know, quite well, and spent time with, you know, here and there. So
you still like touring, because you say you have a lot of dates planned next year. It is kind of a nomadic.
I haven't been out on tour in a long time.
Huh?
I mean, I've done one-off shows, you know, a couple of weeks here and there, but I haven't done touring in a long time.
As you get older, do you still like the nomadic existence of kind of going away for a while and being gone? Is there a specific amount of time that's comfortable to be gone?
I don't know. We'll find out. I mean,
I guess you will.
I don't, you know, I don't know. I never had it in terms of like how I remember on the long tours that I've been on, where, you know, I was one of the last to be falling out. I mean, I can take it. Like, I don't mind. I like just, you know, I don't like it. If I'm left to my own devices, I end up in a state of inertia. So it's best to be just propelled by something, you know?
Yeah. And so how far along are you on, you know, I know from talking to you offline stuff, you're writing songs, you're busy, you're working. When do you expect the next Towne Stevens project to be ready for the fans and for the public?
Like, I mean, very soon. I mean, it's mostly done. So I'm just right now, you know, we're mixing and I'm finishing a couple of things as we're mixing, but like, I think it'll be done in, I don't know, 3 weeks maybe. And then only because like, I just don't, I'm not able to work on it all the time. But I'm trying to.
Will you release it in 2024, or is 2025 into the new year more likely?
Honestly, it could be in 2024.
Okay.
It's probably going to be right around then. And I'm not like, I'm trying to, obviously no one's waiting for this for the Christmas rush. So,
well, that's because you're not Taylor Swift.
Right. And, you know, listen, I'm going to take her on head on. She puts out a Christmas record, I'll drop this the same day.
Why not? Yeah, go ahead.
No. I mean, it's going to be formidable.
Show her who's boss. Yeah. I mean, and so I feel like Towne Stevens are poised to be this generation Simon and Garfunkel. How do you like that? I said it.
Listen, it's better. It's better than it should be. I mean,
it really, all kidding aside though, man, it really is a beautiful album. That first one, I expect the next one, will be too. But I mean, where do you pull the impetus from? Like 4 songs, like what makes a great song? What comes to you first? A melody, a riff, lyrics? I mean, how do you work all that stuff out? Like, what's the ingredients to go into a great song?
Yeah, I don't have like a good process really. It's like it can, you know, any of those things can be the case, you know.
So young musicians should plug their ears right now. This is not how to do it.
Yeah. Well, here's what I know. Like here's what I wish I would have done as a younger musician. I wish I would have done this. I wish, and now you can, if you're a songwriter, which I mean, I always wrote songs, but I didn't formalize them in the way that I could have.
Right.
You know, I was just waiting on a band, you know. It's like, you don't have to do that. If you're a songwriter, you know, as a young person, it's pretty easy to, you know, and you don't have to get all this stuff yet, but you can get enough stuff to make good quality recordings, and you should do that immediately. I mean, there's no reason to do this if you're not doing that, if you're not, unless you're like a player, you know, like a real player, like a virtuoso type player.
Right.
But but if you're if you want to be in a band and you just want to be in a band, I don't know if that's good enough. You gotta like write songs and come up with ideas and stuff and formalize them.
There's some fucking work involved out there, people. You know,
and I'm here to give you the stern lesson that you need, all the youngsters.
The old kick in the ass. Now, all right. Now, here's another one. Some people wrestle with this one. Some people answered immediately. I think you're a pretty decisive guy. If I were to take you, Rogers Stevens, and drop you on a desert island, you can only take one album. What's the desert island album?
Man, they stumped me on that. I mean, I would have to go with something deep that I never get tired of. And I don't know if there is any contemporary pop music that I wouldn't get tired of, but there's certain like jazz records that I would never get tired of.
Right.
Or, I don't know, like let's just get, some great recording of the works of Beethoven or something, because that you'll never get bored.
Now that's a good answer right there. That's a good answer. No one's taking the classical approach, man, but that does ebb and flow nicely with what your emotions will be doing should you be trapped on a fucking desert island.
Well, you need something deep that's going to take a long time to digest.
Yeah.
And that's, well, if you go back to Bach, right? I mean, or and then, the next 200 years, that's your source material.
Right.
So, and then, but pop music is very, it's very, or like rock music for the most part. It's not Mozart.
Right.
It goes in the garage and not the Louvre, right? So
now, do you feel like realistically, and I guess maybe your answer will be never say never, but you guys gave us For My Friends in 2008. Is there any likelihood that we will ever get new music from Blind Melon, like a new Blind Melon album? Okay.
In fact, I thought there was a single that was already supposed to be out, and I don't know why it's not out yet. It reminds me to make a phone call tomorrow.
Okay. Good.
But
glad we're getting the whip crack on this.
We were going to make a record, and we ended up releasing 4 or 5 of these songs of the last, I don't know, 5 years, but 4 years. But we were I had a plane ticket in my hand to go out to this recording session. The whole band did. And I was set to fly on March 15th, 2020.
Yeah.
And so that was our ticket date, I think. And on the 13th, I think it was, or somewhere around there, like all of a sudden it was like, oh, stuff's starting to close off.
Yeah.
And so we thought at the time, okay, well, let's just push this back a couple of weeks to see, to let this get sorted out, because it looked like flights were getting canceled. And then there you go. And then the next, 3 years happened.
Yep.
And it completely sidetracked us, and people started doing other stuff. I started doing this.
So the lockdown was a prolific period for you, though. So you did start, you felt, because I know there's a lot of musicians I've talked to who said, I just took it as a time to recharge the batteries, didn't focus on music. But then there are other artists who said, I got a lot of writing done. I got a lot of shit done. I was prolific during that time. You feel like the lockdown time, you felt pretty prolific creatively.
Well, I mean, I definitely took a shit ton of logistical steps to make it happen. I mean, that whole record is contained within the pandemic. Like I didn't even own equipment, when all that started, really.
Right. And that was DIY. Yeah.
But it wasn't necessarily because of that, but it was, I guess, but it did, honestly just gave me a little time, and I mean, I was working the whole time.
Yeah.
Through that as well, like work. So,
but like I said earlier, though, that
record was made. That record was made from 6 p.m. to 3 a.m.
Yeah, I'm glad that it's not. I'm glad that it's not overly polished, though, man. It adds, it adds a certain charm to the overall recording. It does.
I don't know how to do it otherwise, to be honest. And it's not that I don't want it to sound. It's not. I'd like it to sound like Steely Dan or something, but
Right.
I can't. But I mean, this one that I've done now is I think of quality, but I'm never going to be polished because everything is a performance, right?
Right.
So like what I do is I cut live performances of every instrument, of everything, all the way through,
Yeah.
And so it is a live recording. It's just all one at a time.
Right.
It's all lined up end over to end,
Right. It seems crazy to fathom this, though, man. But next year will be the 30th anniversary of Shannon's unfortunate passing. For people that weren't, who are newer in this generation, man, and who don't haven't seen him or aren't familiar with what he does, man. Do you have like a fond memory or something that you'd like him to be remembered specifically for? Because I think he was a very special, unique talent. As you said earlier, there weren't a lot of guys, especially around the 90s when it was all doom and gloom and heavy, somber stuff when grunge started. He was a breath of fresh air, a high-pitched voice, a beautiful, a really technically gifted singer, performer. I think he would have, I said at the beginning of the interview, I think he would have gone down in the pantheon of great frontmen. We talked about Mick Jagger and stuff. If you guys were 30 years into your career now, the albums, I hate to play devil's advocate, but it probably would have been a staggering discography. What would you like people to remember his legacy for?
Well, listen, you're right. And it's a fucking devastating realization, that I had maybe about 10 years ago about this fact that I realized when he died, probably around 2015, I realized that, I've been in shock for 20 years. It's like, I played music, but it wasn't the same. Like, if you'd have met me when I was 20, I was a missile. I had a mission and I knew what I was doing. I was focused and it's like nothing could stop it. And I just got sidetracked. But like,
well, you lost more than a bandmate, though. You lost more than a bandmate.
Yeah, he was. We were close personally. All of us. He was our. We were very tight, and I think I think we're gonna show people what he was. We have something that we're gonna do that is it's sort of the rest of the picture, right? We had the records and then Danny's film.
Yep.
But we found out, I would say, probably during the pandemic, our manager at the time, during the first part of our career with Shannon, he contacted me and he said, I found in my garage all these tapes, and so what it was we basically started multi-track recording every show, like early-ish on, and so we probably we've got a couple of hundred shows recorded, and some of them, a lot of them have problems, like there's digital clipping or whatever. We had a rack of ADATs and all this crazy stuff, but and then some of them there's a few songs that are good, but then some of them sound like Frampton Comes Alive or something.
Yeah.
And when we're going to release them, and that is the other half of the story, because when you listen to those shows, it's like Shannon was like he was the most entertaining performer. You could go to the shows and see the bands that were our sort of contemporaries and whatever, but Shannon was different and they all loved him. Like, everybody's like, that dude's for real. Like, he was not staring at his shoes, there's more emotions than just staring at your shoes. And, but there was that too, but as a performer, he was incredible. He was funny, and you never knew what was going to happen in shows. Listen, there was debauchery in our band that was on another level.
Sure.
And that and violence. And that came out. I know you have interest in and boxing and all that.
Oh yeah.
But, Shannon was the best street fighter I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, I kind of believe that. I could see that. He looks like a scrappy guy.
Seriously,
yeah.
he was but he was an All-American wrestler.
Yeah.
He was a 3rd-degree black belt.
Yeah. You could tell his physicality even during his performances. You know what I mean? Like you could
like he but I never saw him lose, and I saw him getting a lot of fights.
Yeah.
I saw him get arrested 3 times just in New Orleans for punching cops.
Yeah.
He's one of those dudes who just, he didn't mind getting punched back. You know what I mean? That's sort of a key.
That's a big part of it right there. That's a big part of where troublemakers.
Me, like, I think I could, mess somebody up, but I don't want to get punched back.
Right. But that's a good sign, though, right there, man. That you guys are so like these are basically going to be like bootleg tapes, like the best of the bootlegs that you guys have cleaned up.
Well, no, we're going to officially release them. But like I think there's a platform to do this on, and we first of all we transferred everything. You have. These were old DAT tapes and old ADAT tapes, which are like VCR tapes. Right. And if you leave them sitting somewhere for a long time,
they go to shit. Yeah.
Well, what happens is it starts to, if they get warm, then they cool down, but the magnetic part sticks to the, layers. And so when you play it, it unspools and that stuff comes off. Right. So what you do is you take the tapes, and this is blows my mind every time. You literally bake them in the oven. Like you put them in an oven at like low temperature, like 100 degrees. That's what we did. We put all of this stuff in an oven, cooked it for a little while. You take it out, put it in the machine, and it's fine.
Amazing,
right?
Wow,
right?
That's
like
crazy.
It's so analog. It's the merging of the analog and digital world, right? These old digital formats that are not ephemeral, like it's not a hard drive,
right?
It's not it's not on the cloud. It's literally on magnetic tape, but it's still a digital signal. So, but it is subject to the elements, and so we got through that, and it's amazing. There was this show that we where Shannon got in all this trouble up in Vancouver. We have a perfect recording of that show.
It sounds like a great backstory with it too.
What?
Sounds like a great backstory with it too.
Oh my God. It's probably the worst show we ever played. But just because of, sonically, because everybody was not present, in their head. And all of us. And so, but it was it sounded fantastic. So you can hear all of it.
And so if people want to keep up with what's going on, I'm assuming the Blind Melon has a website, correct?
Yeah, which is, the social media stuff. Nobody goes to the website, do they?
Right. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe for tour dates and stuff like that, or for news or whatever, man. But a lot of people go to the Facebook page. I'm assuming Blind Melon's probably on all the socials, right?
Yeah, we're on there.
And then what about the Towne Stevens stuff? Obviously, that's on all the streaming platforms. The first album, right?
Yeah, it's you can find us. It's not you just Google or whatever.
Yep. Towne Stevens have moved ahead of Simon and Garfunkel. I'm here to say it right now, though. Seriously, I really love the album, man. And what about Towne Stevens? What's the best way to find out what you guys are doing, though? Also going to the.
We're on Instagram and Facebook. That's where this stuff will get posted. We're going to release a single here coming soon, and then that will be on whatever Spotify or whatnot.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And listen, man, I'm glad that we're friends on Facebook now. So definitely stay in touch. I would love to do this again. This was a lot of fun. I've been looking forward to it all day, man, getting the chance to, chop it up with you. And it was a lot of fun, man, really.
Yeah, I appreciate you, man. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, I'm glad I reached out, man. And as I said, keep in touch, man. And we'll do it again. And looking forward to new music, man. Glad everything's going good for you, bro.
Thank you. Appreciate
you, man. Thanks so much, brother. It was good talking to you, man.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Yep. Later, man. There he goes, folks. The great Rogers Stevens. You know him from the amazing, and I will say amazing, and can't say amazing enough when I'm talking about Blind Melon. You want to hear perfect albums, go listen to the 1992 self-titled debut, listen to Soup, really listen to all of their albums, man. But those first two, man, that first one is fucking absolutely incredible, man. He is, of course, from the great Blind Melon, fronted by the late, great Shannon Hoon. Great documentary out on Shannon's life called All I Can Say. And he passed in 1995. The boys are coming up on 30 years without Shannon. They're going to be out on the road next year, as he said, and going to do some type of special tribute. And also, it sounds like bootlegs of live shows with Shannon from back in the day are also going to be cleaned up and released. That's great news. And I would also implore you to check out Roger's work on the work he does with on TOWNE Stevens with another member of Blind Melon. And that they have a self-titled album out that came out in 2023, which is a beautiful album, a really great album. Think in the veins of, I know I made some comparisons, Eagles, Tom Petty, Bob Dylan-esque, very singer-songwriter, some great songs, man. The boys can really write, and obviously amazing musicians, man, because if you go back and listen to anything Blind Melon did, they were an amazing band, could all play their instruments, man. Shannon Hoon, one of the great frontmen, one of the great singers, man. So I implore anybody to go back and do their homework and check out old school Blind Melon. And their last new album was For My Friends, which came out in 2008 with new current lead singer Travis Warren. But expect new music from Blind Melon. You heard it right there from Rogers himself, man. So that's fucking pretty awesome news. So Rogers Stevens came on here and basically gave us nothing but fucking good news. So salute to him, man. Really enjoyed that conversation. Hope you guys did too. Thank you again. So much love and respect for the great Rogers Stevens from Blind Melon, and now doing his thing in TOWNE Stevens. And I'm going to clarify right now, because it's really pissing me off why I'm not gravitating to the name of the other guy. Why am I drawing a blank right now? Oh, it's the edibles, kids. It's the edibles. Nathan Towne. I'm sorry. That is the town of TOWNE Stevens. Nathan Towne and Rogers Stevens. And please, boys, give me a pass, man. I took 2 fucking edibles before this, man. And 51 years old. The mind doesn't work as great as it used to. Factor in the pharmaceutical grade edibles. And I can't really remember shit. But of course, the great Nathan Towne and Rogers Stevens, both of Blind Melon, both involved in this project. And it sounds amazing. The boys harmonize together great. Nathan, of course, the bass player for Blind Melon. Rogers, the guitar player. But they sound great together on this album, man. So I implore people, go out and check out TOWNE Stevens. Go back and do your homework on your fucking Blind Melon. I'm going to give myself a look and admire the Roth Quaff one more time, man. God damn. Just as good at the beginning of the interview as I am in the home stretch. And that's all thanks to Pops up there. Diamond David Lee Roth Jr. you're looking at right here. But I've got the Rockstar genetics. How can I miss? And of course, this helps too, kids. Get it, use it, love it. It'll up your game. And like I always say, you'll never look this good, because that's damn near impossible. But you will take your game up a few notches. So that's important, man. So come on, man. And the hard science will prove very soon that you are, truthfully, been talking to my lawyers, will finally prove that I am David Lee Roth Jr., the son of glam, the front man for the band, adored by millions of fans, the peanut butter to your jam. Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. Mr. Wop, bopaloo, boppa, wop, bam, bam, shazam, hot damn. I am excited because I just got to talk to Roger Stevens, a member of Blind Melon, a band that I fucking love, man. I'm living the fucking dream, folks. This podcast and shit is awesome. And of course, this is where the cool kids come to chop it up with your boy, Rexx Ruger. Stay tapped in, like and follow Pod Scum on Facebook to stay notified of when new episodes are coming out. Or if you're watching right now, you can hit the like. You can like this and subscribe and hit the notification bell, and you will also be notified when these amazing conversations go down and come out. So that's important, man. Stay tapped in, man. Again, thank you to Roger Stevens. That was a hell of a lot of fun and an honor getting a chance to talk to him. And remember, kids, this is the thing that you really got to perk up your ears and listen to. The old Rexx Ruger credo, and that is remember to take it easy and keep it sleazy.